All right, with that out of the way, let's talk about moving online. And again, the focus of this presentation is really about the low risk and low cost methods for going online. There's definitely lots of high cost options out there, but we want to talk about those scrappy ways that farmers can start to build an online presence without having too much of an investment. All right, since we've all introduced ourselves, we can go to the next slide. Abby?
Did it change slides? It did on mine.
It did not?
Oh,
there it goes.
It's a little delayed.
That's fine. So we're gonna ask two questions before we get started, just to kind of wrap our heads around what we're talking about. And the first question is this feasible for you and your farm? Some of those feasibility considerations are the laws that might prevent you from selling online. And the things that come to my mind first with this are cottage foods and unlicensed eggs. Those technically, from the state of Michigan, the state of Michigan has told us we cannot sell those online. That has to be a face-to-face interaction. However, you can list them online as long as the transaction is in person. Do you have reliable internet? A lot of us live in the country, myself included, and my internet is really, really poor. And you're going to be online a lot. So thinking about, what your internet capabilities are, how much does a hotspot cost, and factoring that into your decision making. And then your comfort level with technology. I heard a great webinar the other day of someone who said, know your strengths, and if you're not good at the technology stuff, find someone to do it. There's tons of young millennials out there who will run your online presence if you need. And so really think about, what are my skills? What do I want to spend my time doing? As you think about, should I start online sales? And the last thing is, do you already have a website? So many web platforms can integrate seamlessly with an online store. I'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, next. And the second question is this wise to do? And this really is based on your volume, what type of products you're selling. Most of you are gonna have an established customer base, or at least I hope you do. If you go to any sales place, like if you're selling at the farmer's market, be collecting email addresses, because that's your customer base now in this new tech era. Who is your target customer? So as you think about, I got to establish my customer base, and who is that target customer? If that target customer is also a low tech type of person, online might not be the best option for you. And then lastly, are there alternative options for safely selling my farm goods? Would it be better to put a farm stand at the end of my road? Would it be better to connect with another farm who's already selling online and I can integrate my products into their platform? These are just kind of like the questions to get you started. All right, next slide. And Kelly, I'm going to throw it over to you to talk about some roadside stand options with electronic payment.
Sure. So this is kind of like a hybrid of the going online / just throwing up that farm stand like Jay was talking about. So there have been a lot of farms in Detroit and Southeast Michigan who have just put up a sign with their Venmo information, their PayPal account, their Cash App account, so folks can shop, choose out their own vegetables at the farm stand and just pay electronically, and there's no money transferred. It's super flexible and then limits that in-person contact. So that's one really easy strategy if you have a farm stand or want to go that route without having to have a whole platform.
Next slide, Abby. So the other option, this is a low-tech option, is Google. Google has a suite of options out there for you. One way that I've seen farms kind of start getting into this is to set up a Google form. The problem with Google Forms is you can't actually take any payment. So just know all you can do is just collect the orders. There's also some like clunky things about it. Like if you do have a multiple choice, those multiple choices will be listed out rather than tabulated really easily for you to easily generate a pick list or a pack list. However, many farms have figured it out. They've fine-tuned the Google Forms to fit their needs. And once you have that template, it's really easy to just copy and send it out again in the next newsletter or email that you're sending out. So if this option sounds like something that's interesting to you, I highly recommend playing around with it. Make a play form, send it to yourself, send it to your business partner, try to fill it out like you were a customer, and then try to put the order together like you were the farmer, and see how it works for you. It is free, so that's the nice thing. Next slide.
So these options that are listed on here are kind of that next step in the low entry options. So these are for those of you who are ready to kind of take the plunge into online, or dip your toe into the water more, I should say. The WooCommerce is open source software. It's free, which is really nice. And there's a lot of different integrations. So if you need like CSA management or inventory management, there's different extensions that you can add on. You can basically build it as complex or as simple as you need it for your business, which is pretty great. So it can grow with you as you grow. I did link here one example of a site. I don't know if we have time to click on those just so folks can see what they look like. Not all of these farms are in Michigan, sorry, but Cattail Organics has a really great WooCommerce site, and it actually integrates directly into their WordPress site. So if you're one of those folks that already has a WordPress website, WooCommerce might be a really good tool for you to use because it seamlessly integrates right into your platform. Abby, are you trying?
We can take a moment to click it
Okay.
For Abby's leg.
Yeah, I was gonna do that. Just give me 1 second.
Thanks.
Thanks, Abby.
Computers are tired tonight.
I know they're tired after this long day too. Thank you. So as you can see, like it looks really professional. If you scroll down, if you're building something like this, know that you have to input all of this information. You have to input the names, you have to input the pricing. So it doesn't just come like pre-constructed for you. So keep that in mind. I think the time consideration is also really important when you're deciding what tools to use. Thanks, Abby. Go back. Shopify is another one of the common kind of lower entry point tools that people are using. A lot of folks with retail stores tend to be going that route. Some farms are utilizing it. It has good inventory management, and it's really like a e-commerce, so a shopping, a website, and a payment processing all in one. So if you need all of those things, that might be a tool that works well for your business. It's not free. It does cost, and I think actually the lower price point starts at $30 a month. But this
I'll open up that example if that's okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. So similar kind of format. Again, you're adding in all those photos. You're adding in those products. I honestly, personally, I think I like the look of the other one better, and that one's free. So it's just really up to you and what your preferences are. Square, again, really similar to Shopify. It is e-commerce. Square is a payment processor. A lot of folks have Square already. So maybe if you do, you want to work with a Square site to build an e-commerce platform, and then Squarespace is a website builder. Those all kind of integrate together, and Square is free and pretty intuitive and easy to build a site from. And the Gaskill family farm, that's what they use.
And if I could just add a little background on the Gaskill family farm, these are folks who came to me and they were like, we don't know anything. We don't have good internet. We don't want to spend a lot of time on this. And they were able to figure it out pretty easily and get a site up and going, and came back to me later and said, that was actually kind of painless. Thanks for recommending that. So for those of you who are thinking about this and already getting overwhelmed, if you already have a Square card reader, this e-commerce platform could be your ticket.
Yeah, that's a great endorsement. I definitely, it seems like Square is pretty popular, and I think it's for exactly that reason that you're saying, Jay. It's fairly simple to use. The last one on here that I'm really excited about, I'm not going to pronounce it wrong. It's Reiko, or I am going to pronounce it wrong, so I meant Reiko Marketplace. This is a really interesting Finnish model where farmers put their product on a closed Facebook group. They list them on Facebook, and people place their orders via Facebook, or sometimes farmers link their e-commerce site and folks can order that way. And they have a set order period. They communicate to the group, and then the farmer meets customers at a specified time, usually a really short period of time, over like an hour or half an hour, to pick up their pre-ordered products. And I've heard it explained as a direct co-creation of a market between a consumer and a farmer, rather than a farmer standing at a farmer's market all day. They're creating this short little like pop-up market where everything's pre-ordered, and there's a quick exchange of the product. Payments already happened. One of the examples that's here, and I think this is the first one in Michigan, is over on the west side of the state with Green Wagon Farm. They started 2 of these little Reiko markets in Holland and Ada, and it's been going really well for them. They do have an e-commerce site that they link on the website, but then they have a whole group of farmers that they're collaborating with who also post things on the site for pre-ordering as well. So it's not only a great tool for individual farms, it's a really great tool for collaborating in a low-tech way on a platform that a lot of people are already comfortable with. So I think that's kind of a fun one to explore. And I would encourage you, if that kind of piques your interest, to explore their website a little bit too, because they've got a great explanation of it. And I know they're open to helping other people get something like this started.
Kelly, do you know if Reiko Marketplace can accept payment through?
Oh, that's a great question. So if folks are utilizing their e-commerce and like linking it that way, they're taking payment that way through their e-commerce site, not through Facebook. And some people are doing like what we mentioned with the farm stands, sharing their PayPal or Venmo or other things like that, so people can make their pre-order and then send payment electronically that way, because there's not a payment processor on Facebook.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I am the kind of person that really wants to know what's going on in the background in order to understand this thing. And so I put together a slide to just kind of give you all an understanding of when we're talking about online platforms, whether it's Square or Shopify or Amazon for that matter, they're all operating in the same way. And this is going to help you get an understanding of how they operate. So starting up at the top left, we've got our customer. That's you. Or sorry, that's not you. That's your customer. They're heading into your site, into your online marketplace. So that's the platform that they're coming into. We'll take Amazon. I'm going to use that as an example because everyone's bought something on Amazon, I'm sure. So that customer's going onto that platform. They shop. Their order is collected. Then they go to a payment gateway. That payment gateway is independent of the online marketplace. So places like Shopify, your payment gateway could be a number of different types of payment processors. The names of them all are escaping me, of course, right now. But just know that there's a bunch of them. And then that payment that's taken goes into a merchant account, which then goes to your bank. And the role of the merchant account is to hold the funds, make sure you have the funds before everything's transferred over to your bank. Or to make sure that customer has the funds before it's transferred over to your bank. And then of course you draw all the money out of the bank and go on vacation. The thing about Square, which I'm going to talk about because it's very different than the way that this traditionally works, is that Square is both the payment gateway and the merchant account, which is what makes it so user-friendly. You can just sign up for Square and they're like, cool, what's your bank account? Great, here we go. We're rocking and rolling. And now that Square also has this e-commerce suite, so they call it, so they also have the online marketplace platform, they just make it a really easy process to go from A to B to C, both for you and for your customer. So Square does that, but anything else you'd have to put those pieces together yourself with choosing your payment gateway. That payment gateway helps you get a merchant account that then links to your bank. So just a little background information on how all of that flows through, and that's universal for all the platforms.
I just wanted to add one thing to that I think it's important to remember. The payment gateway, the payment processors, there is a percentage fee that they'll be taking out. So you have to keep that in mind too when you're thinking about the volume of the product that you're selling. Like, is it worth it if you're getting charged? It's usually 2.9% that you get charged. So just another consideration to keep in mind, and why like a Venmo, a PayPal, that kind of stuff, like you're not getting charged a fee for people to give you that money electronically. So just want to mention that. Thanks. So another thing, kind of mentioned collaboration when I was talking about the RACO market. That's a really great opportunity to both sell individually and collaborate with other farmers. But I think a lot of us on this call are really excited about working with other folks in the food system. And these are two great examples in ways in which we can do that. Jay mentioned, if you're not ready to dive into online sales on your own, to find other farmers or a farmer's market that's going online and sell through their platform, let them figure out all the tech stuff, and you just bring your product there, already sold. A really great example of this, Ipsy Area Online Marketplace, is a collaboration between the Ypsilanti Farmers Market, which is run by Growing Hope, and the farm at St. Joe's and Zilkview Farm Kitchen. Jay worked really extensively with them to help them get this up and running. They're using a platform called Local Food Marketplace, which is a really great tool for multiple farms or multiple farmers markets to come together to sell goods. One person or one entity can organize it, and that you can have multiple farms and vendors underneath of it, and one person can do all the work, but lots of people get the benefits of that. There is a cost associated with that platform, and it varies depending on what type of infrastructure you need on the back end. Open Food Network is another really great piece of technology to foster collaboration. It's open sourced, it's free, but because of that, it means that you're building it yourself. There's nobody there for tech support. It works really well. It's got great functionality. You just have to be comfortable building that platform. And then Washtenaw Organic Collaborative, that's 3 farms in Washtenaw County who have come together, and they're using locallygrown.net, which if you go to locallygrown.net, it looks like an early 2000s blog. It doesn't look pretty, but again, it's free. And if you have really pretty vegetable pictures, it spruces it up quite nicely. If you can see, like, that's their cover page, and it looks beautiful. Again, it is time intensive because you're building that whole thing yourself, and there's not tech support to do that work for you. So while free is really great, there is time that's associated with that. But we just wanted to make sure that you knew of other tools beyond just ones individually for your farm. So if you have other folks in your areas that are kind of toying around with this idea of going online, that you can think through maybe some opportunities to pool your energy and resources and work together rather than trying to each do our own thing.
Do you want me to go to the Washington Organic Collaborative website to demonstrate the?
Oh, yeah, sure. That would be great. I was definitely like the first time I went to locallygrown.net, like, I don't know.
You guys are really using this?
Yeah, but they, the folks who use it, it's Brian's Farm, Slow Farm, and Rain Dance Organic Farm, and the feedback I've heard from them is that it worked really well. They've had decent functionality with it, but it's just slightly less spiffy than some of the other ones.
So a little more work to sift through, I think.
Yeah, it's not quite as intuitive, but like I said, you guys all probably have pretty photos of your animals or your veggies that you could throw in there and make it look nice. So, thanks for showing us that, Abby.
Sure. Do we want to take any questions before moving to Kim's piece, or should we just go on?
Yeah, I think a break for questions would be nice.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. I think I wanted to ask something about the legality of okay. So with the shelled eggs, uninspected eggs, the in-person aspect, does it have to be like the transaction, the money is in person?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, but you can list them online. But when you take that money, it needs to be a face-to-face transaction, or that like roadside stand, it's my eggs on my roadside stand. That's permissible with eggs.
Okay.
Can you explain the on my roadside stand difference a little, just for a second? I know egg laws are totally insane.
Yeah. Eggs are like the most complicated law. Essentially, if you're selling it directly to the customer, the risk that the customer takes by buying your unlicensed eggs is mitigated because they know where you are. They came to you specifically to pick it up. If they have a problem, they can come back to you and knock on your door and say, hey, I had a problem. So that's what MDARD is trying to do. MDARD stands for the Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development, for those of you who don't know. And they're just trying to mitigate risk and allow the consumer, the customer, to also mitigate their risk and keep them safe. So if you sell through a third party, you have to have a license and wash your eggs according to that license. But you can—
Thank you. That was very simply explained and probably the best simple explanation I've heard of it. So thanks.
It's all about liability and mitigating risk. Yeah.
I have a question. So with the, I think it's called ROCO Marketplace, did you say, are there fees associated with or is that like a totally free and just kind of community-based marketplace?
Exactly. It's totally community driven and free to set up. It's you creating a like closed group that then you're inviting your customers to, and they're inviting their friends to. And the only cost would be if you have an online store that's processing payments, and that's how people are making orders. And that the cost to you would then be the fee for the online store potentially, or the processing fees. But the Facebook side of things doesn't cost anything.
Okay, and so quick question, are they just claiming it in the comments below, or is there like a Google form attached?
Yeah, so folks have done it a couple different ways. So Green Wagon Farm that we shared the example of, and I think, are we going to share the slides with people afterwards? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Erin, you'll get the slides that has the farm name on it too to help jog your memory. But they have a e-commerce site that they put in the RICO group, and people can either order in the comments or they can go to the site and order.
Okay, got it.
And when people order in the comments, they then just reach out to that person to figure out the payment.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And if you're interested in seeing, I'm not in the region of either the Ada or Holland market, but you can request to join the group and kind of scroll through and see what other folks are offering. And I'll also say about that, and I just noticed this when we were scrolling through, that thinking about requiring payment before or allowing payment on the day of is just something to consider. Particularly if somebody's ordering a lot of things and you don't really have a mechanism for ensuring that they show up. You don't want to get into a situation where you're harvesting without any upfront payment or security that that person is going to come pick up. So that's just something to be mindful of, especially if you're selling perishable products.
Yeah, and I would encourage taking payment up front, if at all.
At least a portion of it.
Yeah, I know like with Snap and EBT, we can't do that online right now or over the phone, but if folks have other means of payment and can pay up front, that would totally be my recommendation.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
everyone.
thanks for the question.
All right, should we go on to Kim?
Yeah, a cord just got disconnected on my computer.
Oh no.
Give me 1 second and I should be able to get it up. We're back.
That's great. I'll introduce Kim while you're figuring out the tech on the back end, Abby. So I am pleased to have invited Kim to our presentation today. I know you guys love hearing from extension professionals and food nonprofits, but it's way more fun to listen to a farmer talk about their experience. And so we wanted to make sure that that we had someone who can really talk to how it feels to be a farmer navigating this and getting into this space. I invited Kim because Kim is one of the most kick-ass farmers I know. And she also deals with meat, and meat is even more challenging than just listing vegetables, because you don't always know how many pounds a ham hock is gonna be when you list it online. And so Kim's really gonna speak to her experience getting started and that meat experience in case any of you have that additional challenge of selling meat. So in a second, Abby's gonna get your slides up there.
So it's, Kim, if you just want to introduce yourself and your farm real quickly, and then these slides will be up in about 30 seconds.
Okay, and if that is a problem, then we can maybe figure out how to share my screen or something too. But so my farm is called Detroit Flight Path Farm because we are right next to the Detroit Metro Airport in Wayne County. So we're probably one of the few farms that I know of in Wayne County that does livestock stuff. We're in sort of a weird area that was farmland, still some is farmland, some of it is sort of country estates, suburban. Then, you know, within 2 miles in any given direction, I have a Ford plant, a Chrysler storage facility, some heavy industrial as well. So it's a weird area. But for us, it's very convenient because we're on a fairly busy road near intersection with 275, and that has set us up well to switch to online in some ways. So if we have the next slide. And I just talked about that. You know, it's a smallish property. We have 41 acres. And most of the arable area we rent out to another farming family that's in our area. And we've started slowly taking some fields out of row crop production and kind of doing agro-reforestation projects with mainly native fruit and nut tree species, with the idea of essentially kind of making a food forest wherein our pigs will just happily jaunt through and eat a little bit of acorn, a little bit of chestnut, and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so we bought the property a few years ago. We started selling our first port in 2018. So we've really only been at this for a couple of years. If we go to the next slide, we can see an example of our agroecological pigs doing agroecological pig stuff. These are, the white tubes are tree tubes of various tree species that are growing. And some of them actually this year is very exciting because we've started to have our first fruits showing up on some of the faster growing trees. But right now we just rotate the pigs through various areas in that mobile pen. And then we have a couple sort of permanently fenced in pastures that our breeder pigs and smaller feeder pigs live in. So we go next slide. Whoop, that was too many slides. Go back one, go back one. All right. So, and I know we talked a little bit about Square. Kelly mentioned that a lot of people are familiar with Square because of, you know, they're at this kind of merchant thing that lets you accept credit cards. So we started out just with a little entry-level Square card reader in, I think, 2019, just so we could take credit cards, you know, just plugs into the phone. And as we started to have a few more customers and started selling at farmers markets in 2019, I just really wanted some kind of system for tracking inventory and for calculations and doing receipts. So I switched to kind of a Square point of service system. And I looked around, I set up an alert on eBay to find one used for a song, basically. I think it cost me $80, and then I had to get an iPad. So the initial cost of switching over was very low because of that. And then once you have an account with Square and you've set up your items and your pricing, it's very easy from there to transition to setting up the actual online store, which we did earlier this year once things started getting really hairy. Next slide. And we, in addition to already having the Square account, we were already doing a couple of things that made the transition pretty easy. We were already starting to use email marketing a lot and sending at least monthly newsletters out. And I put in a link to a very useful presentation by somebody who does farm marketing for kind of coming up with a profitable farm. And it provides some very nice guidance for how to do that email marketing. But of course, if you're selling online, you do need to have people who are online. So we already had a customer, you know, a base of customers of people who'd shared email with us. And we had all of our stuff on Square. So it was with a few clicks of a mouse, we were able to get the online store running. We did have to make some changes in terms of how we were pricing our items. We had to make sure that our customers were aware of the change, and we really put a lot of effort to plugging online purchasing to our customers. And most of them were very happy to do this because nobody in March was super eager to go to Meijer and, you know, get infected. And we had to do really a lot of reorganization of our retail space and our storage in order to have our cuts organized in a way that matched how we priced it. And I just put a second link there just that explains how to set up the online store. And again, it is pretty easy. Next slide. And this is just another online retailer of pastured meats. And I'd always noticed in the past, like they never just do per pound pricing. It's like, the pork chops are, half a pound each and you get a pack of 2 and here's what they cost. And the reason is because it's just so virtually impossible to manage if you have pre-cut slices of meat that vary in size. You don't know how much your ham hock is going to cost, and it's just much easier to kind of put a flat price. So, in this case, they have small, medium, and large chicken. And a large chicken is somewhere to 4 to 5 pounds, and it's $31. And if you get a 4.1 pound chicken, it sucks to be you, I guess, but them's the breaks. So, and that's how we had to reorganize our pricing. Our pricing had been per pound in square because, again, we were using it mainly for sales at farmers markets or sales of people who dropped by our farm where we have a little retail space. Next slide, please. And this is just sort of what the home page looks like when you go to our Square online store. And I think it could probably be done a little bit more elegantly than what I've done. I don't really enjoy using the Square web online store website. It's a little bit clunky in terms of ordering things and moving things around. But again, it's basically free. So you land there. We've made sure we already had a main web page that is hosted with Wix. And we would have had to pay extra in order to have a custom URL. So we've just, kind of put the kind of click here to go to the online store button all over the place on that main site, and it takes you here. Next slide. And there, like, if you scroll down on that landing page, it takes you to our biggest, sort of our most popular cuts, and they can just be bought there. As you can see, we have a little bit of a problem right now, which is that everything is sold out all the time. It is an excellent time to be selling meat because apparently the next thing that people want after toilet paper is meat somehow. So, it's been very good for business. In terms of things that we have in stock right now, it's mainly what we call the funny bits. So if we look at something like a ham hock, here I have this really wide range of prices. And the way that I've initially coped with it, and probably what I'll do is simplify this pricing structure a little bit, is that basically I calculate out different prices for different range sizes of packs and throw them up there. So if we go to the next slide, this is what it looks like if you click on ham hock smoked. I describe what the base price is, give a description, then you can see what we have available, the pack sizes. Unfortunately, you have to manually enter all of these pricing. One issue with the Square online sales is that there are many different ways people can accidentally order something that's totally out of stock. So you have to really stay on top of manually shifting, manually adding sold out if a certain size class is sold out. And I'll probably consolidate these. And one thing that so it's gone okay. Initially, it's been a little bit confusing for customers, especially with so many options. And based on their feedback, I would go back and put in parentheses, how much this pack was, because it wasn't automatically displaying, for example. And I mentioned that, we try and have pushed the online store a lot as well with our email marketing. So when you don't have any sausage or pork chops or anything, and you're really pushing neck bones, when we have our email that goes out, you know, here's a recipe for neck bones. Here's a link that will take you to the online store to buy neck bones. If you click on the recipe, there's probably a link in the recipe on the recipe page to go back to the online store to buy the neck bones. And you should buy neck bones. They're actually really good, but definitely overlooked cut. So it can be complicated because pigs have a lot of different parts on them and they're all delicious. You know, so you have to be able to manage potentially a lot of different things and be able to calculate out different size classes. I do think we'll sort of, you know, and you can go to the next slide. One thing I mentioned, you know, so we have to reorganize, you know, our pricing structure. I'll probably consolidate some of these into, you know, 4 to 5 pounds and just price things towards the lower end, and then maybe just add a little bit onto what our base price is to account for that. And the other thing that we've done is we've had to really reorganize physically as well. So this is like in the upper left corner, that's just a little shed that we have at the end of our driveway, and that's our our in-person IRL retail space, and being guarded by my dog, which is now environmentally verified by MIFFS, and we're gonna get hopefully the second livestock verification before the end of the year. And if we look inside, you know, I used to have a lot of freezers kind of more for display, and that upright freezer there was like the sausage and bacon freezer. And we've kind of added a lot to our freezers in the back in our sort of storage area in the garage. And that upright white freezer in the left is now the online orders freezer. So when we have stock come in, usually like anybody who's on the email list, we will send an email saying pork is coming, because it's been, you know, these heritage breeds take a long time to raise, and nobody told me a year ago that, you know, people were going to be desperate for spare ribs. So, you know, we're pushing through. When we get stuff coming in, we give everybody an alert that says the online store is opening, you know, tonight at whatever time for fresh orders. We will have thousands of dollars of orders within a couple of days. And we just pack everything up, shove it into online orders. We have an overflow freezer. People set times and pick up. And when things are a little calmer and the rhythm's a little less intense, which we'll be moving towards soon, because all of those, I have a lot more pigs for fall. You know, people place the order, they give us a pickup time, we just pack it. If we're not here, the door is unlocked. You can proceed in anytime, grab your labeled bag with your order in it, and head home. If you want to come at, I don't know, 7 a.m. and get sausage, you could do that. I don't necessarily have to wake up. I'm not a morning person. Pigs also are not morning animals. It's another thing we have in common. So, you know, that it's actually worked extremely well. Even though a lot of our customers trend older and some are relatively technophobic, even with those, we're able to make some use of the online system, because if Otis calls me and says, you know, I really want like, you know, 4 packs of pork chops and 5 packs of bacon, I can pack that up. I can use the Square system to set up an invoice and print it out for him. And then that's invoiced. I know exactly what he needs to pay, and he can come and pay in cash or credit, or, you know, Necco wafers, however the elderly like to deal with these transactions. And then for our younger customers who really are more tech savvy, they're very happy with it, because especially these days when we have stock coming in and it's a bit of a scramble, you don't have to worry about missing out on the pork chops, even if you can't make it out here until next week. We can hang on to it for you. We're happy to do it. And because people are coming here, we still have the opportunity for face-to-face interaction, albeit from a 6-foot plus distance. And normally, you know, I would expect having to come out to the farm to be a barrier. At this time in our history, where people are kind of desperately looking for something to do that isn't necessarily staring at their life partner, questioning their life choices at times, you know, it's like, you can actually do this and go to a farm and see it, and it becomes a little bit of an event, and the family comes, and it's an outdoor socially distanced activity that people can do as well. So next slide. You know, Square itself, you know, it has many advantages in terms of being relatively low cost and easy to set up. Many customers are familiar with Square because many farmers at farmers markets use those little sliders, so they may have information saved, which means then if they want a receipt, you just hit a button, it goes off into the ether to get them. And for me, just knowing also what's selling, what's in stock, and what's not there is very helpful, because especially now if we have to worry about, you know, small pork chops and medium pork chops and large pork chops, you know, we have to organize that. And then I have to tell my husband, and I can, if my husband comes and says, you know, so-and-so wants medium pork chops and there aren't any, I can look online and say, well, you know, there's supposed to be 2. Let's see if we can find them. The interface in terms of setting it up is clunky. There are certain things that I would like I would love to be able to put a limit of, say, 2 dozen eggs per customer per purchase, just because our chickens aren't that productive, and apparently I shouldn't be selling them in line anyway. But you know, it doesn't have that option. One thing with the invoicing is that it doesn't, if you create an invoice, it doesn't remove that stock from your inventory until it's marked as paid. So you kind of have to do some little workarounds, because otherwise, if Otis orders 5 bratwursts and then those 5 bratwursts are still online for sale, somebody else might try and buy those 5 bratwursts. And also, you know, there are issues with managing stock across 2 platforms. So if we go to the next slide, I know we've talked a little bit about these other platforms as well. I participate in the Ipsy area online market as well, because, you know, coming out to this farm is still a significant barrier. There's no bus service here. And so anybody who doesn't have their own vehicle would not be able to get it. And we really want to maintain these customers, as well as maintain the relationship with Growing Hope and the other farms that participate. And as I think either Kelly or Jay talked a little bit about local food marketplace, which the Ipsy, which Growing Hope and St. Joe's are doing. It's a very nice platform for me to use as a meat vendor, because it has different pricing ways to do it. So I can sell any size of pork chop, because all I have to do is put in the pork chop, you know, per pound pricing, and then say, you know what, price it as though it's 1.5 pounds. And then if I go and grab a pack for Tony and it's 1.7 pounds, I just go back later and adjust it, and it makes an adjustment to what Tony is charged, which is incredibly convenient. And although the Square platform is definitely working well for us right now, you know, I could see investigating some of these other ones that were mentioned just to see if they have that ability, since it does simplify life somewhat. And I think that is all of it. Is there a slide after that? No. So that's
all.
Experience. And again, I'm pretty tech savvy, but again, as you mentioned with the honey farm, they're not, and they were able to get going on Square. So, you know, it definitely has a lot going for it.